Okay, so let's continue modeling. Okay, so we're getting some work done here. So, once again, how much detail you put into this depends on how important this mesh will be. So right now I'm just straightening it up a little bit, making sure that these polygons are at 0 on the y-axis and these are 0 on the x-axis. And you can see that my low polygon mesh is a different color to differentiate it from the high polygon. It's always a good idea to use different colors to make it easier to see what's happening. Another option could have been you could have created a box and just gradually modified the box to fit the shape of your high polygon. That is another good solution. It's up to you to analyze your high poly geometry and figure out what the best option is. And you can always look for areas to optimize your mesh. Optimizing is the process of making your mesh as efficient as possible while still keeping a certain level of quality. For example, this edge here, these edges are not really necessary. We can eliminate them like this. Now, to preview what your mesh will look like, remember that when you export your mesh to your game engine, it will become triangulated, which means all your polygons will turn into triangles eventually. To preview that, what you need to do is you can apply subdivide modifier and set the size to like 500. And this right here will give you a good idea of what your mesh will look like once it's been triangulated. So this edge here is unnecessary. We can go ahead and eliminate that. And you can pretty much use the subdivide modifier to triangulate your mesh. And this will tell you if you have any problems in the mesh. What you really want to avoid is you want to avoid these really long stretched triangles. They can create smoothing problems. So they are possible. They are suitable for some areas. Like it's fine for this area right here. It's fine to have two triangles here, but in this situation it might create some problems. So I'm just going to go ahead and create an edge right here. Okay, since this is a quick demonstration, I might be able just to leave it at this. And then we can apply a symmetry modifier, X and Y. Okay, so you can use symmetry to mirror your mesh. And this can also be a good idea for game resolution meshes. The thing is, if this is your mesh and you create a texture for it, then all the faces of this mesh will need to have their own unique texture. However, if you make a texture just for this part and then symmetrify it, mirror that, you can have a much higher resolution texture, and it will just be mirrored to the rest of your geometry. Whereas if you bake this whole geometry, then you'll lose some detail because each face, each polygon needs to have its own unique texture detail. I'll explain what I mean in greater detail later on. But for now, let's not worry about that too much. So just try to fix up what you can. Okay, so now all I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and unwrap my model. I'll go ahead and unwrap this part, then apply symmetry. So the unwrapping process, I'm going to go ahead and turn off ignore backfacing. Once again, keep in mind this is a very quick demonstration, and normally you'd want to spend a lot more time and take greater care when you're creating your asset. I'm just going to do this real quick. I'm just going to select the top and click on Quick Planar Map. Move it off to the side. Now go ahead and select this Quick Planar Map. Okay, and that should be everything. Okay, so that was a very quick unwrap. I'll go to Tools, Pack UVs, and pack them all in. Oh, and of course, the bottom. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and create some quick smoothing groups as well, because right now there's no smoothing groups and I need to go ahead and create some. Now smoothing groups, it's very important for you to have good smoothing groups, and I will cover how we can get good smoothing groups later, especially when it comes to low polygon meshes. It's very important for good smoothing groups. Now I'll go ahead and apply symmetry. So this is our low polygon mesh. It's very quick, as you just saw. Usually you want to spend more time creating it. You can see this one is 268 triangles, 264 polygons. Whereas this mesh, I'll go ahead and hide these for now. Let's not worry about that part right now. So this high polygon mesh is 365,000 triangles, rounded, and this one is only 268. So as you can see, it's a huge difference. I'm going to go ahead and make the iterations to 0, but the render iterations, I'll make that too. Okay, so the next step is to apply a projection modifier. And in the reference geometry section, go ahead and click on Pick, or you can use Pick List and pick your high polygon geometry. It says Object 8, and this is what its name is, Object 8. Although, to be smart, you should use a more detailed naming system. But for now, it's just Object 8. So I went ahead and selected it right here. Now the cage is a very important section. The cage is these blue edges right here. You can increase the cage simply by increasing the push amount. Push amount. You can increase the percentage or the amount. And as you can see, when I increase the amount, the cage is puffed out. And you can click on Reset to reset your cage. A very quick way is just you can also edit the cage by going into your sub-objects, clicking on Cage, and then you can manually edit your cage. The red represents the selected parts of your cage. And cage editing is only done with vertices. And you can always reset. So anyways, what you want the cage to capture all the details, you want the cage to be far out enough. For example, in this area right here, this part will not be captured unless the cage is far enough right here. So you want to make sure the cage on this side goes past this geometry if you want to capture it. If you want to capture it within the normal map as you're baking. So I'll go ahead and increase the amount. Maybe a little bit more. And I definitely want it to be increased on the sides. So I can increase the cage on the side. Okay, let's try this for now. So we've selected our high polygon objects. We've increased the cage. Now what we do is we can press 0 or go into rendering, render to texture. And this will open up the render to texture dialog. What we do is under projection mapping, we click on enabled, we click on options, and we click on setup right here. And to get a good result, you want to enable a global super sampler and use something like, I use Hammersley, and increase the quality to the maximum. And there's lots of options here, but the default options work pretty well. Alright, we want to use the existing channel under here. These are your options for baking. Baking is not limited to normal maps. You can also bake diffuse maps, ambient occlusion maps, cavity maps, and other types of maps to create your textures. I'm going to click on add. I want to select normals map, and here you can specify in which folder the maps, the actual file, the actual image file will be created. And I'll go ahead and specify a folder. So you can also specify which file type you would like to use. Let's say TIFF is a good option, and it will use the name of the low poly object. So the low poly object is called plane02, so the image file will be called plane02 normals map. However, you can always change the name, so I can call this test. Actually, let me go ahead and just change it to a simple JPEG file. And under the image control, I can make the quality the best. Then click on OK. And right here is where you decide how large you want the texture to be. Once again, you should consult with your boss, with the programmers, to see what kinds of texture sizes you should be using. For this demonstration, I'll go ahead and select 1024 by 1024, which is fairly large for a small prop. So let's see. You can click on render to files only, so that it will only render to the file and it won't affect the material. If you turn this off, it will automatically create a material and stick the normal map into it and apply it to this object. So now all that's left to do is to click on render, and hopefully we'll get a good result. Here's the progress right here. Now in this preview window, you will not see the actual normal map. You will see just what the basic baking is. Just the material with whatever lights you have in the scene. This is not the actual result. The actual result is being made in the folder that we specified with the name that we specified. So, depending on how complex your object is and the texture size, this might go quickly or it might take a while. So, it's not going to take too long. Now, our UV layout is not the best. I did not spend much time with the UV layout, so normally if you were working on a high quality professional project, you would want to maximize the amount of texture space. So this right here, for example, is just wasted texture space, and you would want to make it better and optimize it to use up more space. That way you can pack as much texture into each polygon. And you can exit this process just by hitting your escape key. And so keep in mind that, remember that I turned off the turbo smooth, but I gave it 2 iterations with render iterations, which basically means that in the viewport the turbo smooth will be off, but turbo smooth will be activated once it begins baking. Okay, so it's done baking. I'll go ahead and minimize this for now. So now I'll go ahead and make a clone of this. Just hold shift, move it off to the side. I'll go ahead and collapse it. And let me go ahead and make a new material here. Okay. Bump 100. Normal bump. Click. Bitmap. Here is our baked normal map. Now go ahead and switch to hardware map. Show. Apply it. Let me see, we might have to make this -100. Sometimes you'll get some slight errors, especially if you're using symmetry. But so this is not looking its best right now because I kind of rushed it, but this is basically the basic process of creating a normal map. So you can see we have a very simple object. We have a very simple object, but the normal map creates the illusion of additional detail. And of course there are some strange errors here that we can fix if we spend more time on this. But since I made it real quick for you guys, I hope this was a good example, a quick demonstration of normal maps and how we go about baking them. And you can see how much detail we were able to pack in here. So I can go back and spend some more time on this to fix these errors, fix these strange looking errors here. But for the amount of time that we spent on it, we got a decent result. Like this is not suitable yet to be put into a game, but this served as a good demonstration for you guys, as a good crash course in normal map baking. So I hope you found this helpful. Thank you for watching and take care.